Film Review, China Salesman. In the 1960s, economic high times in the West triggered the rise of so-called Europuddings, tortured contractual liaisons between international talents whose feature film products were often the cinematic equivalent of Esperanto, something intended to appeal to everyone, but so culturally disconnected and artistically generic as to typically wind up pleasing no one. Today's emerging equivalent may be represented by China Salesman, which is apparently what happens when umpteen private investors, those companies and producers listed below are just the tip of an iceberg, plus the PRC government pooled their resources to make a popcorn extravaganza both populist and propagandistic. How that resulted in a largely Africa-set action-adventure jumble involving industrial political espionage, not to mention the inimitable starring combo of Mike Tyson and Steven Seagal, actually billed here as Steve, is anyone's guess. Indeed, a tell-all chronicle about how this movie came into existence might be more compelling than the film itself, and require angry denials from authorities in response. More reviews. Film Review, and number 039:3 and number 039, but that's not to say Salesman doesn't have entertainment value of its own, intentional or otherwise. In fact, it's the rare kind of sprawling, costly hot mess that achieves instant camp gratification other fiascos must wait decades to ripen toward. Already a box office stud on home turf, it seems unlikely to do much better elsewhere, including this weekend's U.S. theatrical launch. However, home formats will eventually draw gawkers to a movie whose awe-inspiring excesses recall such past peaks of ideologically blinded war as hell entertainments as the Unification Church funded Inchon or John Wayne's Vietnam War Huss of the Green Berets. Their motivating patriotic delirium is only spiced further here by a very 21st century sense of cinematic ADD. Sparking unintended guffaws straight off from the introductory note, this movie is based on the true story. Director Tan Bing's screenplay then has its hero Yan Jian, Li Dongxu from Brotherhood of Blades, delivering the first of much cluttered explication in voice-over. A nameless most chaotic country in Africa has just ended a long-running civil war. Representatives from various nations have arrived to compete for the contract to rebuild and upgrade the nation's telecommunications networks. IT engineer Yan and sales executive Ron Ling, Li, rep a virtuous, industrious Chinese firm, while their sneering European rivals are spearheaded by duplicitous Frenchman Duchamp, Clovis Fouin. Weighing the bids are the struggling county's own officials plus a supposedly neutral international commission headed by Scandinavian blonde Susanna, Janek Askvold. Initially haughty, and seemingly in cahoots with Duchamp, she soon proves otherwise by warming towards humble but manly Yan Jian, husking, "Be careful," as he faces more perils than Pauline, and frequently requiring that he rescue her from various gunfire and explosion-filled crises. These occur because murky forces are trying to destabilize Wade Everest and yet again for their own murky purposes, among them Kaba, Tyson, a supposed prince who wants to restore his questionably still existing ancestral tribe to their glory days of 2,000 years ago, and who's in league with a nefarious Duchamp. Lurking somewhat inexplicably, but not at all inconspicuously, around the periphery is ex-mercenary arms dealer and bar owner, in an alcohol-banning nation, Lauder, played by Seagal. The latter's current Danny Aiello-like physicality is not rendered more imposing by the black shoe polish apparently deployed on his, or somebody's former, hair. Further, the strenuous camera, blocking, and stunt mechanizations required to make nearly immobile Seagal resemble a lethal force in his big fight scene with Tyson are an early sign that China Salesman is going to be something very special. The frantic, garbled intrigue only gets loopier from there. Soon we're neck-deep in business meetings interrupted by indoor tanks, not to mention sword fights, bazookas, sabotage, general foo, genital mutilation interruptus, the hero's repeated dangling from precipices, and a whole lot of whatnot. Exactly who is trying to kill whom and why soon becomes hard to follow. While it's possible that the script makes sense if one pays close attention, most viewers will prefer just letting the ludicrous pile-up of incidents bounce them around like a water park ride. Its title, a rare instance here of truth in advertising, China Salesman does sport a reassuring message amidst action tumult. Only the ingenuity and moral purity of Chinese economic expansionists can save other nations from tyranny, war, and corruption. Of course, that must be taken with a giant grain of salt, as the film seems largely a fantasy whitewash of real-world espionage scandals involving the likes of telecom giant Huawei, one in which Chinese companies are now the victim rather than the perpetrator of overseas skullduggery. Viewers must wade through 110 minutes and a purported $20 million in extravagant nonsense to glean at the final credits tail end that no less than 7 mainland Chinese propaganda departments are co-producers. The performers do their best, which often isn't very good,